Steel folded like a soda can, rain hammered the windshield, and the world went sideways on the viaduct north of downtown Seattle. One breath I was arguing about a software rollout on hands-free. The next breath I was a passenger in my own life listening to a horn that wouldn't quit. They say I coded once in the ambulance. They say a firefighter said my name to keep me here. What I remember is waking up 5 weeks later with plastic in my mouth and a calm voice saying, "I'm Dr. Patel, you're stable, we'll talk when you're ready." Later she said words like incomplete T10 function rehab, and then she said a sentence nobody had used on me in 15 years of building companies. "You won't do this alone." That sentence stung more than the staples. Dignity is heavy, and when your body won't cooperate, it takes 2 hands to carry it. I fired the first home aide in a day, the second by Sunday night. The third didn't even unzip her backpack before I pointed to the elevator. "Don't touch me, don't move my chair. If I need something, I'll ask." I said it like a threat, because I was terrified of hearing pity in anyone's voice. I gated myself inside a glass box 60 floors up, ignored my co-founder Nora, let my mom's voicemail pile up with prayer hands. I could hear ordered groceries. I didn't eat, and worked just enough to tell myself I still mattered. And if you've ever stared at a ceiling at 3 a.m., making deals with a god you don't believe in, yeah, that happened. Dr. Patel finally snapped the cord on my little island. "Adrian, you've stalled. You'll lose what you have if you don't move. I'm sending someone who will push you, work with her, or I sign the papers for a facility." At 9 a.m. sharp, the elevator chimed, and in walked a woman with a canvas duffel and blue fern scrubs, braid-tight eyes that took in the whole room in one sweep. "Good morning, Mr. Cole. I'm Tessa Physical Therapy. I'm here to help you get your life back." I clamped my hands on my wheels and went cold. "I don't want help. I don't need help. Tell Dr. Patel to stop wasting everyone's time." She glanced at Lake Union like it was a painting. Nice view, quiet though. And then she opened my kitchen cabinets like a detective. "When did you last eat a protein that didn't come in a delivery box?" "Don't touch my stuff." She cracked eggs, turned on the stove, and set it without heat. "I don't work for you, I work for your recovery." I tried to bury her in sarcasm, intimidation, silence. She behaved like weather, steady, inevitable. When she set the plate down and told me to eat, I said no, and then my stomach answered for me, and I took a bite, and the heat hit somewhere in my chest I thought was gone. "Posture next," she said. "Absolutely not. Don't touch me." "I haven't touched you yet," she said, and when she finally did, it was clinical and respectful. A nudge to my shoulders, a hand on my scapula, a subtle lift that took pressure off something I couldn't name, and suddenly air reached farther into my lungs. Better I admitted a little. She smiled with her eyes. "That's our first rep." Day 2, she brought a jacket and a question. "When did you last feel sunlight without glass in between?" "The balcony counts," I said. "Not enough." "There's a rooftop garden we're going up. You can wheel with me or I'll wheel you, but your brain needs air, please." Please mattered. Up top, the wind tasted like salt and metal the city layered in. Freeway like a river, a gull with opinions, a siren like a violin with bad timing. Tessa didn't hit me with a speech. She sat there and let me notice my own life. "Different," I said, "good, different. Stale air makes stale thoughts." She said, "We'll crack windows in your head until fresh remembers the way back." We built a routine that I pretended to resent. Bands and dumbbells, transfers and pressure reliefs. Arms that shook on the second set, now shaking on the 5th in a way that felt like progress. And every time I said, "Can't," she said, "Try one more, then we'll renegotiate." She showed me videos, not poster children for grit, actual people teaching the hacks that make life livable. A coder with an adaptive keyboard, a racer talking core strength, A dad demonstrating hand controls so he could get to his kid's game on time. This isn't inspiration, she said. It's education. That night I called Nora for the first time since the crash. You pick a fine time to rise from the dead, she said. Then her voice cracked. Where have you been? Gone, I said. Then we spent an hour on a client threatening to ditch our last mile product, and my brain lit up the way it used to the night before a launch. I slept after that, not perfect better. I started noticing Tessa's edges. 2 phones, one cracked at the corner with a tone she only answered by the window, a turkey sandwich she never ate, shadows at 9 a.m. that vanished by noon. What's going on? I asked, not as your client, as a person. She looked down like there was a note on the floor. My nephew Eli 9 lives with me, needs a pacemaker, insurance covers part. The part it doesn't is a mountain. I'm not telling you for money, you asked. How much? I said. Adrian. How much? She said a number that would not destroy my life and would change his, I said. I'll wire it this afternoon, she said. No, it isn't right. I'm supposed to help you, not the other way around. Yesterday you taught me that accepting help isn't weakness, it's strategy, I said. Let me be strategic too. She closed her eyes and nodded once. Yes. People love to say you can't buy grace, and they're right. But you can remove a boulder from someone else's road and discover they were sprinting all along. The surgery scheduled fast, and while she camped at Seattle Children's, I did something I hadn't done in months. I built. I opened a doc called Navable and sketched an app that rates sidewalks, doors, bathrooms, buses, all the places you only learn don't work when you're sitting in front of them with a wheel that won't fit. I texted Nora screenshots at 2:03 a.m. She replied at 2:05. Build it. Tessa came back with exhaustion that looked like a prayer answered. I showed her the prototype. She didn't clap. She got to work. Call it flexible seating, not accessible. Don't use stars. Ask would you return with a friend who uses a chair. Make comments. The feature maps the support. And you know what? It started to feel like a thing with a pulse. We celebrated with overpriced Thai on my balcony, laughed at dumb stories, and by the end of the week, it was a date without the label. Then a text knocked the air out of me. Eli collapsed at school ER. She didn't ask me to come, I went. The pediatric ICU looks like a spaceship designed by a child. Beeps that mean normal, beeps that mean remember to breathe. Tessa fell into my shoulder and whispered, I'm so scared. I said I know and hated how thin those words are, so I did what I do when panic tries to peel me. I called everyone a UW cardiologist, a friend of a friend, a specialist in Portland who owed me a logistics favor. I opened doors the way rich people do, and I hated and loved that I could. But in the end, it wasn't my contacts that saved him. It was a resident with sharp eyes who spotted an infection near the lead, and a nurse who said, We're going to fix this, like she had a hammer big enough for fear antibiotics, monitors a slushie on day 2, and I cried in a hallway where nobody could see me. On the ride home in the van with hand controls that felt less like a prosthetic and more like permission, I knew I didn't want to live only for my own survival. So the next morning I told Tessa I wanted to seed a fund to help mom and pop shops, add ramps and automatic doors, so a kid like Eli could walk into a donut shop instead of watching through glass. The Coal Movement Fund sounded like a question I wanted the city to answer. She listened and put the papers back in her bone. Are you doing this for them or for me? For us, I said. I need you to be honest, she said. Are you with me because I needed rescuing? Men with your money confuse control with care. And if you've never been called out in a way that feels like truth with teeth, it's clarifying. It also hurts. I could have defended myself instead, I said. I don't know how to prove what I feel isn't charity. Then don't. She said, figure out who you are with nothing to fix if you still pick me when I don't need you. We'll talk. And she left soft steps on loud hardwood. I called Nora. Am I using my wallet to tell myself I'm the hero? You're a fixer, she said, gift and hazard in a company you pointed at bugs in a relationship. Sometimes the bug is you. What would you do if she didn't need a single thing? I rolled to the window and thought about the parts of Tessa no one sees. The way she asks permission before she helps with a transfer. The way she won't tuck a blanket without asking, because control has a flavor, and you can taste it even when it's warm. The way she says my name like a place, not a job. I called Tessa. Come over, hear me out, and if you want to leave, after leave. She stood in the doorway like a possibility, and I told her I loved her because of who she is when nothing is wrong. Stubborn, funny, relentless, the woman who stole my excuses. The money moved a boulder, but it didn't buy my heart. It freed it. I would pick you in a quiet room with nothing to fix and no audience, you know what I mean. She watched me like a clinician and a woman and let her shoulders drop. Say it again on a day I don't need anything, she said. And 2 days later, in a park where dogs were committing small crimes with sticks, I asked her to marry me with a ring so simple it looked like a promise, not a prize. She said yes without blinking. You want a satisfying ending? We had one. We got married in a cedar boathouse on Lake Union. I practiced with braces and rails for months, so I could stand long enough to say I do. Eye to eye, darn. Patel cried into a napkin like a proud aunt. Nora roasted me in her toast. My mom danced with a teacher who believes in teenagers like it's a religion. And later on our tiny balcony, Tessa told me we were having a baby, and I sat there grinning like a man who won a future he thought wasn't being handed out anymore. Nav Abel launched in beta the Coal Movement Fund, wrote its first checks to 3 diners and a barbershop. People wrote reviews in full sentences about doors and attitudes and bathrooms. Community started happening in the comments, and then came the controversy that I want your take on. The city floated a small fee on new restaurants to fund accessibility retrofits for old ones. Half my comments turned into a war. Justice or punishment, carrot or stick, I went on local TV and said, I believe in carrots. I also believe a city should put money where its mouth is when it says everyone belongs, and yeah. A certain board member wrote a think piece about innovation dying under regulation, and yeah, we clapped back. So tell me, was Tessa right to question whether love can get tangled with power? Where do you draw the line between help and control if your city proposed that fee? Would you vote yes or no, and why? Drop your take, tell me what you've seen with your own eyes. Hit like if you believe different doesn't mean less. Subscribe if you want to follow the fund's first 100 projects, and say where you're watching from because we're mapping this together.